Bostrom Ministries. Beginning January 2018, Bostrom Ministries engaged in a whole new assignment by entering the airwaves of the world. Don't miss Ken and Mary Bostrom Ministries Live.
Welcome back again to our broadcast. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you've been enjoying the 12 tribes of Israel. I love teaching on the 12 tribes. I did a really thick manual in 2009 and taught it in several different places and about the tribes because, I'm going to read to you again in Genesis 49, verse 1. And Jacob gathered his sons. This is on his deathbed. He called his sons and said, "Gather together, that I may tell you what shall befall you in the last days." Those are the last days. For 2,000 years, we have been in the last days. So we are in the 12th of the 12th of the 12th. We're at the midnight hour. It's amazing. And so, the tribes aren't just history. They are also very prophetic about the church. The church, there's some people that we see have got a call of Judah on their life. God will liken them to what he is going to do with them, like he did with the tribe of Judah or Issachar. Now, last time we talked about Reuben. Reuben was very much like he was a great shepherd, he was a great farmer, but he refused to fight. These are in Houston where I'm recording right now, there's a couple pastors I can think of that are great shepherds. They have a great flock. They love their flock. They take care of their flock, but they will not fight. And Hosea 4:6 says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." And then he says to the priest, "Because you have rejected knowledge." They haven't taught their people right from wrong. They haven't taught their people that, about what you need to be married. He hasn't taught them that abortion is murder. They refuse to have anything that's going to cause any division in the Bible, in the Word, in teaching or anything. They just refuse to fight. And in Houston, we have the biggest Planned Parenthood abortion clinic. One whole floor is given to late-term abortion. And we have pastors that if they would have said something from the pulpit about it, that it was murder, but they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. And see, that's the tribe of Reuben. And guess what? That was his choice. He didn't want to fight, didn't want to go into the promised land. He just, they won't talk about things like that. I have so many people that say, "Why doesn't my pastor talk about this?" And I say, well, some pastors just don't want to talk about anything controversial. So they'll let you vote for people that want same-sex marriage and give you no rights. They'll vote for abortion. Your vote is your seed. And guess what? You're going to give account to Jesus Christ of how you vote even, how you live this life. And so we're going to get into the tribes, and there's a lot we can learn about the tribes, not just historical. But let's look at when Simeon was born, because Simeon means to hear, to hear. This is when we come into the New Testament, it's called Simon. It's the same thing. Simon Peter, Simeon Peter. It's just like Jesus changed Simon's name to change his character, because Simon really was carrying on the lineage of Simeon. Now, I don't know exactly what tribe he was from. I can look up and I could find what tribe he was from, but I would think because he was called Simon that he may have been from the tribe of Simeon. And you can go down the path of error of your forefathers, or you can choose the right path that God has provided for you. So here in Genesis 29:33, And here we see again Leah. Uh, and she conceived again and bore a son and said, because the Lord has heard that I am in love, he has given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. His name doesn't mean just to hear, but to hear and obey. The Passion Translation comment on this is she named her first two children after God's mercy and compassion on the downcast and the rejected. There is mercy. I love this, how he put this. There is a mercy chord in God's heart that is touched by the broken, the poor, and the rejected. God gives greater honor to the dishonored ones. Isn't that beautiful? Dr. Brian Simmons is the one that did the Passion Translation, and I love how the love of God comes out in his comments. And I almost wonder if he's not just getting a download from the heart of God when he writes this. I was with my hairdresser, Holly Scherlinger, yesterday, and she says when she first started reading the Passion Translation, she was so undone that she had to put the Bible down, and because she was getting so much love coming out of the Bible, that she just couldn't handle it. And after she kept going, and now it's just like her favorite translation. But let's get back to this. God has love and mercy. So with Reuben, see a son, and with Simeon, to hear. It's God's heart is his heart is for all those that are broken, those that are unwanted, those that are unloved. And here God is ministering her to not just one son, he gave her two sons. This is her second son, number 2 son. Now, Simeon's symbols, the first one is a pitcher and dagger. Now, this is not a really good thing, but let me read to you. I forgot to put down in my notes here exactly. Yeah, 34. I want to get to this one. This is the Dinah incident. Now, Dinah was about 10 years younger than Simeon. Dinah was all, they may have the 4 mothers of the 12 tribes may have several daughters, but the daughters are never mentioned in the Bible unless their name is there for a purpose. The sons are always mentioned, but not the daughters. But when we come to the Dinah incident, oh my goodness, this happened after Jacob had served Laban for 20 years, went into the promised land, 500 miles, went back, and this is when Simeon acted in such anger. The Passion Translation says he was 15 or 16 years old at this time, Simeon was. Leah was the mother to both. And normally, the older brother would be the one defended, because what happened is 34:2. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and violated her. He raped her. He raped her. And so, Hamor came and said, my son, Shechem, who the city was named after, he wants to marry your daughter, Dinah. He loves her. Dinah, however we want to say it. But he wanted to marry her. So Simeon said, well, tell them they have to be circumcised. And so, Shechem loved her so much that he was going to, they were willing. So he went back to the city and talked all the men into being circumcised. Well, the men were of no good for quite a while, because once you circumcise a grown man, their strength, their ability, everything totally leaves. And what Levi and Simeon went in and killed everybody in that town. They killed them. And I'm going to read verse 34. chapter 34. It came to pass on the third day when they were in pain, I'm on verse 25 of chapter 34, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brother, each took his sword and came boldly into the city and killed all the males. And they took everybody else captive. They killed Hamor and Shechem, the son of the edge of the sword, and took Dinah from Shechem's house and went out. And so, Jacob had bought he had bought land there for 100 pieces of silver. And now Jacob says, oh, now we have to leave. Now you've disgraced us in Shechem. Now we have to leave. All the tribes around them, all their neighbors, we're going to be enemies of all their neighbors. And so because they were in a hurry, Rachel died in childbirth and with Benjamin, and fulfilled the prophecy. Really, back when they left Laban's area, Rachel had stolen her dad's gods, and she was hiding them, and Jacob didn't know that. And so Jacob says, whoever has taken a gods will be put to death. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, their prophetic words did not hit the ground. And he prophesied that his wife was going to be put to death. But who did he blame? He blamed Simeon and Levi. So let's go back to the symbols here. So that's why the pitcher and the dagger are symbols. The gemstone was topaz. Now, topaz is a softer stone. It's easily scarred. And if you ever are around somebody who is easily irritated or easily offended, it doesn't take much, because they carry those scars. They carry they're just easily offended. They're easily angered. And that's the way he was. So topaz may be a beautiful stone, but they're easily scarred, just like the Simeon's descendants. So topaz is likened to wisdom. I don't know how wisdom lines up with easily scarred, but the month of Av. Now, Reuben had Tammuz, and Simeon has Av. Both of those months. Av is the happiest and the most dreaded at the same time month in the Bible. It has the month that the 12 tribes, the 10 of them, decided that God wasn't big enough to take them into the promised land. Remember, in the wilderness, and Joshua and Caleb says, our God can do it. Let's take them. But the 10 tribes were telling everybody, there's giants in the land. We can't handle it. Look at the grapes we got. And so they weren't able to go into the promised land. And so there's another thing about the month of Av, is it's like the Valentine's Day in Israel. So it's like the most dreaded, and it's the Valentine's Day. The strengths of Simeon. He makes a good team with Judah. Now, Judah means praise. If you line up somebody that's easily offended to somebody that is a true worshiper, you're going to have a great team, because you're going to line up two tribes that like to win. They're both winners, winner, and they make a good team with Judah. And the one thing, remember, his name means to hear. They hear spiritually, and they have great revelation. Their weakness is their anger, their fighter, and they're cruel. Now let's take that to somebody today. You may have somebody that is a great pastor or a great leader, but all they want to do is fight. All they want to do is tell you the negative. All they want to do is to tell you everything bad that's happening in this world. They don't give you a hope, because they don't have hope in themselves, unless they're lined up with somebody that is a worshiper, true worshiper, like a Judah. Now, in today's spiritual lineage of Simeon, those who would be the ones who would fight without thinking, easily angered, hot-headed leaders. And we have too many of them in our pulpits. We have too many people that all they want to tell you is negative, 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 negative. And we need some pastors and we need some spiritual leaders that will give you hope. And so if you can take what the tribes, the things that are negative about them, if you can take them and turn and just guard yourself against. It's the same thing with the book of Proverbs. It tells you this is good and this is not, and you get to choose. And so even if the Lord shows you that you're from the tribe of Simeon, you can choose the strengths. Because let me tell you, Simeon he could hear God. He could hear the voice of God. And here we have Jacob's prophecy. Now, Jacob's prophecy, Genesis 49:5. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Instruments of cruelty are in their dwelling place. Let not my soul enter their council. Let not my honor be united with their assembly. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they hamstrung an ox. Now, I don't know where that hamstrung an ox is, but the slew a man could be Simeon and Levi with the Dinah incident of Genesis 34, where they went in with a sword and killed every male as they were had just been circumcised 3 days before. Verse 7, cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. And so what Jacob says is, we got to separate these two, because Levi and Simeon were so cruel and so fierce. You put them together, and they were horrible together. It'd be like troublemakers. It'd be like the gangs of today, where they're just cruel and bring terror and everything else, because they just want to fight. They just want to be cruel. And but guess what? There again, we get to choose. Now, every tribe has a prophecy from Jacob, and 400 years later, a prophecy from Moses. Now, Jacob prophesied. This same prophecy is for Levi too, but it's not just. It's for Levi and Simeon. They don't have because they were always together. It was like they were twins. They were just always together. They were close family. And but Moses does not prophesy to Simeon at all. In the prophecies, in Deuteronomy, I believe it's 33, you are not going to see a prophecy for Simeon. He gives all the other tribes a prophecy 400 years later, but he did not give one. You know why? Because they put Simeon inside of Judah. Here you see the blue line. You see Judah's territory there, and then you see Simeon. God made sure that Simeon got absorbed into Judah, so that they would work well, that they would fulfill the calling on their life. And God's going to connect you with the right people. God is going to connect you. I remember years ago when I was reading about the story of throwing out the net, Peter casting out the net, and Jesus said, well, throw it on the other side. And Peter threw out the net on the other side, and the net was so full that the net started breaking. Well, God told me, he spoke to me, and he said, in the last days, I'm going to make a net that works. And this time, the net will not break. And so that's what God is doing. He's networking people together. That's one of the strengths of Ken Bostrom Ministries, is we network people. God will put us in front of this person, and we'll say, you need to meet this person, or you need to meet this person. We have whole churches that almost all of their speakers came from people that we know. God has just given us so many contacts, wonderful, beautiful contacts. But let's look at Joseph and Simeon in Egypt. Genesis 42:24. Now he turned away from them and began to weep. This is talking about Joseph. When he regained his composure, he spoke to them again. This is when the 10 brothers had come to Egypt because their dad had sent them. There was famine in the land, in the promised land. Sent them to Egypt because they found out that there was food over there. And so they sent them. And here was Joseph, and they didn't know it was Joseph. They thought Joseph was dead. And here 20 years later, and of course, Egyptians, he didn't have any hair, he didn't have the beard, and didn't have all his smooth skin. And so they didn't recognize him at all. And they didn't know that he could understand what they were saying. He was speaking Egyptian, and they didn't know that he understood Hebrew because they didn't know it was Joseph. And so now when Joseph turned away from them and began to weep, when he regained his composure, he spoke to them again. And then he chose Simeon from among them and had him be tied up right before their eyes. So he took out Simeon, and he had him tied up, like handcuffed, and put him into prison. And you know why it did that? I really believe Simeon was such an instigator. Joseph said, you know what? This could mess up my whole family. He could make a mess. He could be an instigator. He could start a fight. And the Lost Book says Simeon was jealous of Joseph and an instigator on the plot against Joseph. That he was an instigator on selling, on putting Joseph into the, see if I can find, putting Joseph into the well. And here's from the Lost Books. He's saying this on his deathbed. From the time of my youth, I was jealous of many things of Joseph, because my father loved him beyond more. So I set my mind against him to destroy him, because the price of deceit sent forth the spirit of jealousy and blinded my mind, so that I regarded him not as a brother, nor did I spare even Jacob my father. He was an instigator. He was an instigator of this whole thing of Joseph. But for everything, that is why Joseph kept Simeon and said, you can have Simeon back if you go back and bring Benjamin back. And that was wisdom on Joseph's part for him to do that, because sometimes you have to get rid of the troublemaker in a church, and a lot of pastors don't want to do that. There's a pastor I know that had troublemaker in the church, and that troublemaker, I knew the church, I knew the people, and these people had been troublemakers since forever that I knew, and they wouldn't do anything about it. And this pastor said, you can't come back. And once he did that, once he made that hard decision, the church expanded and flourished exponentially. Amazing. And so don't be afraid to do the right thing, is my word for you today. God bless you. Bye-bye.
This is Ken and Mary Bostrom. We thank you for joining us today. We welcome you to watch us on kbntv.tv, YouTube, Facebook, mbostrom2.com. Also listen to us on WRNO Shortwave Radio. Contact us at kenbostromministries.org. God bless you today.
Ken Bostrom Ministries. www.kenbostromministries.org. Don't miss Ken and Mary Bostrom Ministries live. Contact them at 832-212-1138.